Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It is a profound privilege to be here today, and I am truly thankful to the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Raja Parvez Ashraf, and his team for inviting me to speak, and also for hosting this very important international conference. I come from the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, and the time allocated does not allow me to elaborate on the rights situation in the country, and we are all very well aware of what is happening in the whole ambit of civil, political, economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights in Pakistan, and the situation that is unraveling over the past few months or the past few weeks, or particularly in the past few days, infringes upon fundamental rights of citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you back to the kind of republic that we aspired for and the kind of republic we have created. And I have the advantage of coming from civil society and not from the government, so allow me to be candid and critical. Unfortunately, the transition from a colonial state to a modern republic is not complete in Pakistan. We continue to negotiate between our colonial past and between becoming a modern republic. I can give you an example. The three major institutions, the permanent institutions of the state, as it were, the bureaucracy, the judiciary, and the military are all colonial heritage. And they are at odds, continuously at odds, with civil society, citizens' organizations as one group, political parties, which was again developed by the people of Pakistan, created by the people of Pakistan, and independent press. I qualify press or media with the word independent. So these three institutions of the state have been at odds with the three institutions of people. Now what Constitution does? Constitution creates a space for negotiation between the permanent, because every state needs permanent institutions of the state. Nobody can deny that. Nobody can ever challenge that. That is the character of the state, that it has to be run through permanent institutions. But those permanent institutions, which are all appointed, have to be in sync with people's institutions. And that space of negotiation, as I said, is created by the Constitution and the Parliament. And we all know, in this august house, you would know better than I do, that how constitutions, constitutionalism, federalism, equal citizenship, and the role of Parliament has been undermined in our checkered political history. So there needs to be an assertion of parliamentary supremacy. That is the first and foremost demand that the civil society or the Human Rights Commission or I personally, as an ordinary citizen of Pakistan, will put forward. Now, I would actually like to speak about a few things that were touched upon in her brilliant intervention speech by Muhtarama Asiya Nasir. You see, because there's this struggle between turning into a modern republic which can still be an Islamic republic, but a modern republic. There is a problem with the objectives resolution. I'm so glad that I see Senator Mushahid Hussain in the audience and Achakzai Saab in the audience, and so many other parliamentarians, and Asif Khan Saab, my dear friend, who will confirm and correct me if I'm wrong, that the objectives resolution was a problem in Pakistan's constitution, which was passed after Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's death in 1949, if I'm not wrong. In March 1949 it was adopted, and it has become the preamble to the Constitution of Pakistan. But what General Zia did during his dark years was that he took the word freely before, where it was allowed for every faith to profess, practice, and proselytize their faiths. There was a word freely in the original objectives resolution, which was removed by General Zia. And the other thing that he did was that preamble is not considered a substantive part of the Constitution. General Zia turned it into an addendum to the Constitution. So that creates an inherent discrimination in Pakistan's Constitution, which our Parliament has to consider removing. And consequently, there cannot be a minority head of government in Pakistan. And unfortunately, the 18th Amendment confirmed that, and there are so many of you who sit here who need to revisit that. I mean, why are we so afraid of 3 to 4% of Pakistan's population? I mean, why? What is this paranoia about 3.5 or 4% of Pakistan's population? And why can an inefficient, incompetent person like myself can in theory become the Prime Minister of this country, but a very competent, a highly competent person like Asiya Nasir or many of our non-Muslim colleagues cannot be considered for that position, where you can have, principally, you can have a Chief Justice from a minority Pakistani community, or a Chief of Army Staff from a minority Pakistani community. So why cannot you have that discriminatory clause removed from the Constitution? So I second you, Madam Asiya Nasir. Judiciary has been compromised in our history. There's been a history of PCO judges. There's been a history of judges like Justice Dorab Patel, who was the founder chairperson of the commission I work with. But there are so many others who have taken oath on the provisional constitution order in the history of Pakistan, where constitution was held in abeyance or constitution was suspended. And it is a history which we need to break part from. And Parliament has to play a role there. And one more thing that I would like to point out is that, because I think Madam Chair began with the mention of the Government of India Act, or it was in the previous session, I believe Mohsin Ranja Sahab mentioned the Government of India Act 1935. You see, the problem is that the Criminal Procedure Code and the Pakistan Penal Code are not aligned with the fundamental rights enshrined in Pakistan's constitution. So I think there's a lot of reform that needs to be done to make them align with each other. So the fundamental rights enshrined in the constitution, civil, political, economic, cultural, social, they are particularly civil and political rights. The Criminal Procedure Code and the Pakistan Penal Code need to be revised to bring them in line with and under the ambit of the Constitution, the chapters on fundamental rights or the articles or clauses on fundamental rights in the Constitution. So that is one request that I would like to make. Then there's another issue with Pakistan's Constitution and Pakistan's legal system. The colonial laws that we have inherited, like Official Secrets Act, for instance, like the blasphemy law in its original form in the 1920s, like the sedition law, which has been struck down recently by Justice Shahid Karim of the Lahore High Court. But unfortunately, the very next day, the incumbent government, I feel sad to say that, used the same law to arrest an opposition politician. The sedition law was invoked, which I don't think should be the case. All these laws, which some of which I have mentioned, are colonial laws. They come from the 1920s. They need to be suitably amended, if not repealed. This is the job of the Parliament to look at that. Finally, as I request and strongly urge that our Parliament asserts its supremacy, there are a couple of demands on behalf of the rights movement that I would like to make to our August Parliament. Do not amend the Transgender Persons Act of 2018. This is going to have major consequences on the well-being of that community. Criminalize enforced disappearances as soon as you could. Do not undercount the marginalized, or do not allow the undercounting of the marginalized segments of Pakistan's population during the present digital census that is happening in Pakistan. And I would also like to thank you again in the end for listening to some of these concerns. And also, I wish Pakistan's parliament and democratic dispensations anywhere in the world in these times of rising extremist right-wing populism, I wish them well. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.